There was a lot of talk about Somnia being able to handle 1 million or over 1 million TPS.
I was very worried because we've been really focused on these kind of like high quality gaming and entertainment applications, and that's really kept the users around and kept them sticky. At the moment, I think we've just done 820 million transactions in total over the first month. We're going to continue to heavily invest in that area. But the next step for us is starting to think how we bridge from a Web3 native consumer base into a Web2 consumer base.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask, because you were mentioning sort of value for institutional players. Is there any sort of plays being made in that direction?
Very interesting question. Very hot topic right now. You're getting some alpha here on this one.
Hello, and welcome to another video interview with CCN. I'm Eddie Mitchell. Today I'm joined by Paul Thomas, the founder of Somnia, a new Layer-1 that is breaking ground, trying to bring as many people as possible into Web3 via on-chain entertainment. Paul, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going well. Not sleeping as much as I used to since launching a blockchain, but yeah, it's been fun. Been good to be here.
Yes, you've been extremely busy. I mean, we spoke in July and we did a nice little article interview. And I imagine, you were in the build up to launching your mainnet. There was a lot of talk about Somnia being able to handle 1 million or over 1 million TPS. And you've launched the mainnet at the end of September. How's the network going and performing so far?
It's been pretty good. It's been quite the journey. I think since we launched, the million TPS hasn't been hit on the mainnet because obviously it's real users with real transactions with real applications at the end of the day. We did get to, I think we got to about 160,000 TPS, which is still, compared to every other blockchain in the market, I think it is now the top in terms of rankings. So no other blockchain has achieved that in a public setting before. So that's very cool to see. Obviously EVM compatible as well, so any dev can build on it. So that really helps. We haven't built like a custom language or anything like that. Anyone can build on it. User adoption has been pretty strong as well. We're at about just under 200,000 daily active users. So that's good. I was very worried because we had a very large community that were using the blockchain during testnet. And I was like, will they stick around? Will they keep being here? But they've been retained quite well. We've retained, I think, like 70% of the users that we had in testnet. And that's really good to see. I think it comes down to the quality of the applications. We've been really focused on these kind of like high quality gaming and entertainment applications. And that's really kept the users around and kept them sticky. So we've seen a lot of people playing those apps, having a great time. All those apps are really pushing that transaction throughput of the blockchain. They're putting a lot of data and logic on chain. At the moment, I think we've just done 820 million transactions in total over the first month, which is a lot. For context, most chains don't do more than like 100,000 or so in the first month, so it's good.
Right.
It's a good start, basically, is the way I put it.
Well, you're one of the new players and in the sort of high performance blockchain space. There's a lot of talk about the high chain performance. High on-chain performance now. How has there been any standout performance from any dApps or games that have really been pushing it?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest one has been a game called Variants. So this game it's a roguelike. So people that aren't familiar with video games, I'll explain it quickly. You basically are a character where you go through dungeons, have to fight through bands of monsters. And essentially it's a difficult game is the way I put it. Like it's all about basically getting better at the game and getting further in the dungeons and the progressions. So you get this kind of deep loop of mastery. What they do, which is really interesting, so they have obviously like NFTs and kind of those mechanisms like most Web3 games, but they also put all of the state of the players they move through the dungeons on chain to verify that the player didn't cheat and did do this successfully, and then they're going to enable more mechanisms around that. So that puts a lot of data on chain. They got to, I think, just under 10,000 CCU, which is very good for even a Web2 game. Very cool to see. They also had a very successful NFT collection. They sold, I think, 11,000 NFTs, and that was very big. I think in general, actually, the Somnia ecosystem has been quite big for NFTs. I think because we have a lot of gaming and kind of those entertainment style products, and so the NFT trading ecosystem has been very rich, which I've been pleasantly surprised to see, and very cool. So yeah, I think that's probably the biggest one in terms of traction. You can see literally when they start their playtest, there's like a massive transaction spike, and that's basically them.
Just to go back to the NFT side of things, because I was recently speaking with OpenSea, and they obviously see the utility in games being massive. Why were you surprised to see such high volumes of NFT trading?
Yeah, I don't. So it probably is obvious now, right? So for me, NFTs as an asset class is not very interesting to a lot of participants in the crypto space now. Obviously, there was the hype cycle in 21. NFTs were the new hot thing, and definitely see them become much more muted over time. So I was just kind of expecting NFTs not really to be a huge deal. But obviously, when you have a lot of these gaming and entertainment products, NFTs associated with them, they're very interlinked with the game. They give people benefits, they give people access. And so I think that's why you've seen quite a strong NFT ecosystem evolving inside of Somnia. We actually partner with OpenSea. They're our primary marketplace provider. That's also helped as well because they're very, very valuable in terms of distribution. They obviously work as a great front door to people who are interested in NFTs. And so, yeah, I think because ultimately in Somnia, the NFT ecosystem also has utility and value. That's probably why you're seeing a lot more activity. And then maybe you see in other chains where they primarily are used for art, which is still cool, but not as cool basically as when you can actually use them and they create value in the game and in the applications.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite an exciting time for sure. The value that NFTs can provide in games. It was one of the earliest use cases to break through, really, like Axie Infinity, Gods Unchained. That was from Immutable. So obviously, all this is driving quite a lot of on-chain value for the Somnia ecosystem. You've got the Somnia token is now out with the launch of the main net. How's ecosystem participation with the TVL staking inflows?
Yeah, so there's lots of things to talk about here. So I think one of the things, this isn't necessarily in the ecosystem, kind of outside, the trading activity of the Somnia token itself has been absolutely crazy. I didn't really expect this either. So there's a lot of retail participation. I think at one point we were the 9th most traded token in the world. So that's like competing with big players like Bitcoin, Solana. Yeah. And so that's talking to like the exchange partners and understanding that tends to be a lot of smaller retail players. So there's definitely a lot of retail interest in the Somnia token, which has been really, really good to see. In terms of staking, that's another one that I've been very pleasantly surprised by. Currently, we have 211 million and something tokens staked. So that's for validators to essentially run across the network, and that's token holders delegating their tokens. That, for context, is about just over 21% of the supply. So that's a very good start in terms of getting those tokens staked, getting that validator set open, and getting people who are token holders interested in participating in the ecosystem. We are looking to grow that. We need to kind of get that up actually quicker, because one of our scaling issues today is we can't decentralize the network more because we need more tokens staked. Big thing there is getting more investors basically interested in staking, but it's still been a very good start, having nearly 21% of the supply kind of locked up in staking. TVL wise, not as strong there. I think ultimately the chain is very focused on entertainment and kind of gaming. And so bringing on mass load of TVL was never really a focus for us. So there's still a few $1 million. You can liquidly trade most of the tokens on top of Somnia. But one of the next kind of steps for us, I think what we're kind of realizing is TVL is an important metric from an investor standpoint. And so we're going to start doing programs to bring in more TVL to Somnia. We're talking to institutional players to kind of bring them in as well. I think for us, we didn't really have also all the key DeFi ecosystem components live day one. We focused very much on the gaming and NFT side. So now we have obviously lending protocols, DEXs, liquid staking tokens, all the kind of key components are now online. So we're going to start doing a bigger push to get TVL into Somnia. I don't think we're ever going to be like competing with the big players, because ultimately we're a chain focused on gaming and entertainment, but getting to like a decent level there is kind of our next target. So yeah,
I would be remiss if I didn't ask, because you were mentioning sort of value for institutional players, things like this, and I've seen like Chainlink, they made their own little reserve where they start acquiring their own tokens through revenues, using their revenues, and there's also this big rise of digital asset to treasuries, basically firms just converting to become investment vehicles for other things. Is there any sort of plays being made in that direction?
Very interesting question. Very hot topic right now. You're getting
Yeah.
some alpha here on this one. I've kind of started hinting at this in my Twitter feed, but so I personally think the blockchain space is changing and the Web3 space is changing, where you're seeing a move towards more traditional financial metrics that you see in Web2 TradFi world. And they're starting to be applied to the Web3 world much more. I think Hyperliquid was probably the biggest stake in the ground here. We had this massively revenue generating application in terms of the Hyperliquid exchange, and then they have a blockchain behind that as well. And they constantly use those revenues to buy back the token. And I think this is a pattern in the industry that's going to continue. If you look at the industry as a whole, the front end apps are making tons of revenue and the blockchains are making nothing in terms of revenue. Their primary revenue model is gas, which comes from transactions, which is where we've been very focused. But we're now shifting that mix a bit to now starting to think about key protocols across the network where we can accrue revenues from those protocols and use that to buy back the token. So we're looking at partnering for DEXs, CLOB DEXs, lending protocols, liquid staking tokens, NFT marketplaces, all what we call kind of like global DeFi infrastructure that sits across all of the applications, and taking essentially a portion of their revenues to buy back the Somnia token, essentially add utility to that. So that almost makes a Somnia token a way to bet on the ecosystem as a whole. The other thing that we're doing that's a change in tact is, so we have a very strong kind of grants program, which we use to kind of get projects building on top of Somnia, incepting new projects. Traditionally, the way we've done that is we've essentially given them tokens to build on top of Somnia with clear targets in terms of consumer traction or transaction traction. But now we're moving that to think more like what I think of as a video game publisher, but you could also think about it like a VC, where essentially we are paying for a portion of their project, taking either some of their tokens or some of their revenue streams, then using that to accrue value back to the Somi token at the end of the day. So this basically means that if you're buying the Somi token, you're almost buying into the whole of the Somnia ecosystem and a portion of its revenues as well. I think this is going to become more and more important for blockchains, thinking about how they go up the stack and into the application layer and take a portion of those revenues and accrue it back to the ecosystem token. Because I just think the old model won't make much sense much longer. If you look at the price to earning multiples of most blockchains, even Ethereum, the most successful blockchain, it's in the hundreds of XPE. Other blockchains are thousands or tens of thousands, and they just don't make sense from a traditional valuation metrics. And so I think there's going to be a shift in the space over the next kind of like 2-3 years, which we're hopefully get in front of. In terms of DATs, it's early for us, I'd say. We're looking at this very carefully. I think for us, if we were ever to build a DAT, it would not be what a lot of people do, which essentially they create a holding company that puts in some cash and puts some tokens and just uses that cash to buy back token. I don't think that's very useful and value accretive at the end of the day. What you want to do, in my view, is acquire or partner with a business that is revenue generating, put that into a special purpose vehicle and into a DAT, and then that business basically's revenues is continually used to buy back the token and creates a continual pressure. It actually makes sense as an investable business in and of itself, rather than just what I think a lot of people are doing is essentially financial engineering, which is very good for token price, but I don't know how sustainable it is in the long term. I'm very worried, in fact.
The sustainability of it is tough because it gets so saturated, and a lot of these, what I see is quite a lot of these companies are not posting great revenues, they're not posting great income, and they're sort of going, okay, well, we'll convert into a DAT and hopefully we get an overnight 100% jump on our stock share price, work that out, and infinite money glitch, right?
It's
a bit of a mad time.
Yeah, I just don't. I think the weirdest ones, I'm not going to name the project, but people are now doing these pre-TG, which is just madness. Like you don't even have a live blockchain yet or a live token and do that thing. It's crazy.
It is bananas, but it's ambitious. I think we've got to take our hats off to crypto and the Web3 for finding another way to accrue insane amounts of money. It is bananas. I guess more to the point, so these institutional players are creating this sort of these revenue streams for Somnia. How do they trickle down sort of to the players or the users? Because I understand that you've got your weekly quests, Somnia Odyssey, and you've got your Dreamathon phase 2s, which have funding. Can you tell us a bit more how these sort of intentions would trickle down, and what's the engagement been like with these initiatives?
Yeah, so for us, there are kind of like three pillars to Somnia. One is building up a broad consumer base that we can then use to inject into all of the applications in the ecosystem. The other is building up a broad set of high quality applications and a developer ecosystem. The third one is token holders and institutional players. So this, what we're talking about here, is really around that user acquisition play. So we've been throughout the testnet, we were very clear and transparent about we're using the token to incentivize user behavior to bring them into the ecosystem. We've now continued that post testnet into mainnet with the Odyssey program. Essentially, these work as mechanisms for us to direct the user base into different applications. But what's really good is the applications, because they're fun at the end of the day, they're good quality video games or they're fun applications or ways consumers can make money. They tend to then stick around in the apps and keep playing them, keep having a good time. So it's not just like a chuck money at the problem and then disappear. This is a form of UA, is the way we kind of think about it. So we're going to continue to heavily invest in that area. But the next step for us is starting to think how we bridge from a Web3 native consumer base into a Web2 consumer base. Ultimately, the apps we have in the Somnia ecosystem, they are very good applications for any user at the end of the day. And so what we really want to do is kind of bring in that Web2 consumer base. And so we're thinking about different go-to-market mechanisms and strategies with traditional Web2 marketing and bringing those users in. We're also currently building out a new front end to the ecosystem we call the Somnia browser. This is essentially a mobile app or a desktop app, which you can use as like the front end to the whole ecosystem. You would have seen other chains do this, like Abstract and Base, WorldCoin. We're building essentially a similar thing, but ours is going to be very gamified and focused on the entertainment angle that we have inside of Somnia. And so essentially we'll attract those Web2 consumers and put them into that app at the end of the day. So that's on the consumer side. The developer side, we're doing several accelerators and incubators. I think that for us is a better model than just kind of giving out grants and attracting protocols that are built on other chains. I think a lot of chains, if you go to them, it's the same like 20 or 50 protocols you see everywhere else. For us, we're really trying to incept new projects and new teams to really take advantage of Somnia's capabilities and build out apps that will attract those mass consumers. The other thing we're very focused on with those kind of programs is bringing in Web2 developers into Web3. So for instance, the Dream Catalyst program, which is basically our gaming focused program, that has a very strong focus at bringing in Web2 game developers into Web3. And so what we do basically is find good quality game teams that have shipped good quality games before or have one that's in progress that's about to launch, then bring those into Web3. We have like tutorials, ways of onboarding them. We give them a whole kind of learning program to do that effectively. And I think that's where you're going to get the best apps at the end of the day. Bringing in Web2 developers into Web3, you're going to get much more innovation and much more higher quality apps at the end of the day, which can bring in those mass consumer audiences.
Who are you, if I may ask, I mean, you may not be able to name anybody, but what sort of talent have you been attracting?
Yeah. So at the moment, it tends to be independent studios, so it wouldn't be names that you've necessarily heard of. But what's happening in the games industry at the moment is it's going through what I call a deconsolidation phase. So essentially, loads of the really high quality talent from the big AAAs are being fired essentially or let go of.
Yes.
And they're reforming new independent studios. And so you're getting like big major talent from the big AAA publishers who are very high quality developers forming new studios. And then we're kind of taking them into Web3 basically because funding in the game development scene is very hard at the moment. And so it's very easy to acquire these people to be like, hey, we can bring you funding. Hey, we have an existing audience. We can help you with distribution. And that's a massive value proposition to them in and of itself.
How do they feel about the approach though? Because surely I imagine these Web2 developers maybe share some of the cynicism and skepticism perhaps around blockchain, Web3 gaming, NFTs.
Great question. So it's half my job basically, converting Web2 devs. I did this a lot fun. So I've been in the games industry for like 14 years. A lot of my friends are from the traditional games industry. So I go to the pub and have to convince them why crypto and Web3 is a good idea. There are two cells basically that I explain to people. So I explain one is that innovation in the games industry comes from three factors. One are new genres of games. Two are new platforms, like mobile, for instance. And three are new business models. And this happened with when you went from kind of box copy to expansion packs, then you had free to play. These business models caused step changes in adoption. Web3 has new business models, which have not been they've been kind of like scratched at. Axie Infinity kind of scratched it with Play and Earn. I think there is something there. I think the other one we're looking at is enabling games to monetize the metadata of their game. So an example is people are putting, every time you win a match or every time you register a headshot, that's registered on the Somnia blockchain. And people are building prediction markets around that to basically say, I reckon the next match I'm going to get 10 headshots, get paid out. So that's basically my sell to them. Like, there is a new set of business models and kind of gaming primitives that we can build here that will give you massive access to a broad set of users very quickly. They buy into that idea because they've seen this before. The other one, which doesn't work as well because they think I'm a bit crazy here, is this idea of modifiable games. So once you start putting more logic and data on chain, you can more easily make mods of existing games. So you pull like some systems from one game and move it into another. So you get them what I call composable video games. And then what this means is you can take these components and build more games faster, which essentially means more video games, which means more fun video games, which brings in more consumers at the end of the day. The reason why I'm such a big believer in this is if you look at the games industry over the past 20, 25 years, all major genres were mods of existing games. So MOBA was, yeah, exactly. MOBA was a mod of Warcraft 3. Battle Royale was a mod of Armor. They're all mods, basically. And if you put more stuff on chain, you basically have this massive soup of modifications you can make in a super quick manner. And that, with AI, I think is like a potential Cambrian explosion of stuff. And that, they buy into the idea. The problem there is the tooling gap. So actually building a game fully on chain is very, very difficult today. At Somnia, we've unlocked the performance characteristics that enable that. I think the next step for us that we're looking at is the tool chain that enables game developers to build a fully on-chain game within the game engine where they're used to being. And that's the kind of next step for us we're looking at and thinking about more.
Have you had sort of studios come in, get started, and then come up against that barrier and go, okay, we're out then?
Yeah, they don't necessarily say they're out then. What we tend to do is help them. So we have engineering teams that we inject into them and kind of help them out, build past those areas, basically. So no one yet has been like, I'm out. There's a lot, I think the tooling has got significantly better anyway. There's a heavy use of a tool called Sequence and Third Web that basically make it much easier for game developers to build on chain even today. So the tooling has already got better since like 2-3 years ago, but you need continual investment there. I think what happens is they start to trade off how much they put on chain. So that's why this mod thesis that I have won't play out yet. You need more tooling to make it easier, and then I think you can play out that thesis. But the whole monetization mechanism thesis, that is already happening today.
Do all these developers take the same approach? Okay, so you'll have your mobile games, the casual games. There's going to be the AAA development, single player, multiplayer. Does the tooling need to be made to differentiate for these things? Does it accommodate all of these things?
Interesting. Not in particular. I think it depends on what level we're looking at. So if you're looking at the meta systems of a game, so say for instance, a marketplace to buy stuff, an inventory for players, a way to matchmake people together, those are not like massively dissimilar between games. You already have this today in Web2. So you have things like the Steam store and the Steam kind of marketplace and those systems. We're just basically saying back those onto Web3 infrastructure, make those more open, make those more interoperable. That will then allow more consumers in and more value for you with secondary fees. So I think those elements, not in particular. I think when you're getting into the logic of the game, to say how a character moves around or how this AI NPC works, that just requires a general purpose programming paradigm and allowing game developers to go from where they live in the game engine to that code now going on chain. That is a jump that needs to be made. That's the tooling gap that I'm talking about, to enable you to code a game like you would naturally do in a game engine and then enable you to publish that on chain so it just works out of the box. We have a couple examples of how we're doing this today with a new technology that's coming out in October called Somnia Stream. This basically turns the blockchain into a global pub subsystem like Firebase or Supabase. That's a very familiar API to a lot of game developers. They'll be able to plug that in very quickly to their game development workflow. But there's more that you have to do there, but that's kind of like one of our first steps that we're making.
Awesome. Okay, I appreciate that. I wasn't sure how to properly phrase that question. So again, you sound like you have tons and tons and tons on your plate, lots of initiatives. So let's look to Q4. It's just kicked off. You like you said, you've got big initiatives. You've also got Dream Forge Incubator, global hackathons. It looks like you're setting up for something quite big in 2026. What's the plan?
Oh, what's the plan? So I think for us, as I said, there are a few different streams. So one stream is this kind of revenue element that I talked about before. So it is really about creating that base layer of applications that people can build off of that generate revenue for the chain, and then finding apps that are very retentive and high revenue value to the ecosystem. So that's a very key component to us, which we're focused on a lot about what are the key applications that's going to fundamentally drive that. The second one is around innovative applications that are really taking advantage of the blockchain's speed and latency, and that can then scale to mass consumer applications. So we have a very strong thesis in gaming. We have a very strong thesis in prediction markets. I didn't really talk about this in this call, but there are lots of teams building what I call quite esoteric prediction markets. So there's one team building a prediction market around flight data, so you can bet on a plane being late. There's one building it around F1 data, so you can like bet on F1 cars. And I think that's going to be a theme for Somnia in general because of its high performance. You can put a lot more data on chain than you can in other blockchains. So you're going to see a lot of these kind of what I call esoteric prediction markets. The other one are fully on-chain limit order books. So think like Hyperliquid. You can build that on Somnia. There are a couple teams building those at the moment, and I think that's going to be a very interesting space for us. So in terms of gearing, and then the other element is large Web2 kind of partnerships. So we haven't announced any of these yet, but behind the scenes, we're talking to major Web2 brands to bring them on chain. That will bring in either their consumer bases or bring in their applications and start building them on chain. So I think 26 for Somnia, basically, if we are successful, you'll see a massive set of applications that are bringing in a large amount of consumers, generating a lot of on-chain transactions because of the throughput of Somnia, but also a large set of revenue streams that come from these diverse applications that work to power the ecosystem at the end of the day. So that's obviously very broad for 26. In the future, kind of like 5-year vision type time period, I kind of see Somnia turning into more like a decentralized version of Roblox. So imagine there's lots of different experiences, be those games, be those entertainment experiences, be those gambling and prediction style experiences, where people go between them seamlessly and just have a good time, basically, in this ecosystem of like fun places that are very retentive. I think that will bring in a lot of consumers. Yeah, that's where we're going, basically.
Super exciting. Well, I guess then to sort of put you as a final question, to put you on the spot, then would you be able to share any of these games, titles, applications that you have been obsessed with using on Somnia lately?
Oh, so I keep speaking about Variance. It's bad. So Variance is one that I play a lot. I think Variance is very accessible. You can play it within a web browser, so it's very easy to play. And for me, it is very much my kind of game. That's the reason why I think I play Variance so much. This high skill cap game, it's difficult, it's fun, it's got very appealing graphics as well. So I think I play a lot of Variance, but I shit it way too much. So I really need to talk about other things. I think for me, I've also been playing a lot with the Somnia DeFi ecosystem, which again, not really our focus as a chain, but has been quite a burgeoning place. There's been a lot of fun in the meme coin space, lots of interesting meme coins that I've been participating in and playing around with. That's been cool. The lending protocol just came online, so I've been kind of looking at different DeFi strategies within Somnia, where you kind of put in tokens to the lending protocol, borrow that, put that in other protocols to generate yield. So that's also something that I've been personally playing around with quite a lot. But for me, really, I think the gaming stuff is going to be very, very big. Like there's a lot more games coming. Maelstrom is out now. QR Sailor is coming out. So there's lots of these kind of like high quality video games I think are going to be the places which are really sticky, bring in a lot of consumers and retain them. The most interesting app that's coming up is an app called basketball.fun. This basically is an application that allows you to create a fantasy basketball team, basically. And based on how well the basketball players do in real life, they monetize and give you value back, essentially. This app is very cool in and of itself, but I think its real killer feature is it's being built by Tristan Thompson, who's a famous basketball player. So he basically is a way of hacking distribution because he already has a large fan base who are basketball fans. He already is very connected in the basketball sphere. So he has that kind of edge in terms of distribution. And that's, I think, another strategic thing for us about partnering with people who have a distribution edge. Because I think building high quality products is hard, but really distribution is one of the hardest parts, and hacking that and working out interesting ways to do that, I think is going to be important. So partnering with famous celebrities in different verticals, or partnering with sports leagues, I think is another one which we're looking at. I think it's going to be very important for Somnia.
Right, I think it's going to be you have an excellent year ahead. I think in crypto, Web3, we sort of expect things to move extremely quickly, and those expectations are sometimes met. And obviously, launching a mainnet and having everything that you've got on the go at the moment is crazy, like crazy busyness. So I really appreciate you taking the time to come and join me for a call today. I hope we can catch up sometime, hopefully before the end of this year, if that's possible. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, it'd be good to take a touch point. I think I'm just honestly very excited and interested to see all the new applications coming online. With all the programs we kind of mentioned, there are
Yeah,
lots of
me too.
teams building in lots of different verticals and really taking advantage of the Somnia chain's performance. And I'm just really interested to see how these kind of pan out and how the traction goes. So yeah, it'd be cool.
It seems like Web3 is there overall. It seems like this year we hit a really big strides, especially in gaming. But the industry itself is thriving
Oh
right
yeah,
now.
it's for me. I think the biggest thing is the regulation. So because there's a
Yeah,
lot better regulatory clarity, what I'm seeing is a lot of devs who previously didn't want to touch it because they're like, I might get in trouble, this is a bit dangerous, to now being much more like, yeah, let's do this. I actually see there's a massive value proposition in terms of the way I can build my app, the way I can distribute my app, that I think is really important for the space.
pardon me, my phone rang. Yeah, that's again. I think when we cross over into 2026 and all these regulations are finally in place, especially with stable coins, that will be the big one. Then we'll see, yeah, things truly fly. But yeah, thank you again, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this call. And yeah, let's try and catch up maybe December, if not the other side of 2026.
Yeah, sounds good. Awesome. Thanks for having me. It's been fun.